As our culture shifts from live shows to live streams, the Chicago Cultural Alliance finds it more important than ever to dive back into our roots, to create a platform that welcomes tough conversations, and to share our cultural stories of resilience. Welcome to Cultural Connections. Well, welcome to Cultural Connections.
Thank you.
This is a visual podcast, and we designed this podcast to raise the voices of the members of the Chicago Cultural Alliance and its supporters. And in each of these episodes, we will hear from different cultural perspectives about topics related to cultural diversity, inclusion, and equity. And I am very excited to welcome Monique Brinkman-Hill. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Peter, for having me. I'm super excited to be a part of this conversation and really glad that the Southside Community Arts Center can participate.
Excellent. We're so excited. And yes, the Southside Community Arts Center, quite the institution here in Chicago. And it is a 80-year-old organization. And you are just starting.
Yes, that's true.
Yes.
So the fun part of this story is I was selected and actually began my tenure December of 2019. So there's the welcome, and then there's January, February, and COVID.
Yeah.
So it has been an immersion.
Quite the ride already.
Baptism by fire, so to speak. Yes.
That is, yeah, I feel it. I've started with as executive director at the Alliance just in June, and so I'm also feeling the pressures of figuring things out in a new way. I imagine. You know, you went through a long process of interviewing that I'm sure you had all these big plans for the organization. And how's that going?
So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We had an incredible 2020 planned, and we were super excited, and we're still super excited. But there's been a shift.
Yeah.
We totally had to change everything. As a small institution, we were not prepared for, everything going virtual. The bulk of our programming has been in person, and we've done some incredible things, in terms of exhibits, programming, events. And now we had to pivot.
Yeah.
And I think I've heard that word 1,000 times now.
All over.
But we had to pivot and think, how will we continue to carry on the mission of the Southside Community Arts Center, to honor the artists, to honor the collectors, our team, the organization and its history. This is actually our 80th anniversary.
80th year.
And who knew 80 years ago that we would be celebrating virtually.
Yeah. When are you doing an 80th celebration?
We are going to do an 80th celebration. December 5th is our virtual gala.
Excellent.
And as I've also learned, virtual galas are very different,
so different
than in-person galas. And so we are working that out right now.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes along with it. And as you already mentioned, the need for the technology right now is huge within the arts sector as a whole. And a very important thing that will be needed to continue the work of the Southside Community Arts Center and so many of the cultural heritage centers that the Alliance works with and serves. Technology is where it needs to be right now.
You mentioned technology, and one of the first things that was very clear, it was on my to-do list, but it moved quickly to the top, and that is we needed an updated website. In order for us to, continue some of the programming, we needed a venue and a place for our community to be able to go to. And so I'm really excited to say that we're now in the midst of working with a company to update our website, to recreate, to do
perfect.
brand refresh. And so I can't tell you how excited I
Yeah.
am that the possibilities of that,
Yeah.
you know, for us to put programming on the website, for us to have some ways, because what I think is going to happen, and of course I could be wrong, because who could have predicted any of this?
Yeah.
The genie's out the bottle. You know, we will certainly go back, we all hope, to having our doors open at some point, but we will always need, going forward, virtual capabilities.
Yeah.
And you talk about technology, we suddenly realized that we didn't have the
Yeah.
technology that we needed, and we are in a scramble
Yeah.
to work with some of our funders to help us with some of those what could be a basic request, but for us it's, you know, it's a lifeline because it's so critically important to how we can go about doing business.
Yeah. And you're not the only one. Don't worry.
I'm sure.
Plenty, you know, we work with 40 organizations throughout the city, and many of them found themselves in the same position you did of we've taken websites, honestly, for granted.
We did.
Because many, you know, even the Alliance, we had to do a lot of updating on our website too to make it a home base for our members to go to
Yes.
for the resources that they need. And imagine the same thing with every institution that we work with needed to. I love how you put it, create a space, create a gathering place digitally for the community to get together, because the physical space, the building is not available to everyone right now. And we definitely took our websites for granted before this moment.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's funny, when I was talking to the website, the team, and they said, "What do you wish for?" I had a laundry list. And, you know, I'm sure they're thinking, yeah, well, hold on.
We got to get to 101,
But,
right?
you know, but we essentially, I wanted a place for our archives. I wanted a place for e-commerce. I wanted a place for people to be able to look at videos and exhibits. I wanted a community space where maybe we can't have you in person, but we can have rooms or availability online for our artists to get together, for our community to be able to have conversations and talk, and we can be that venue. So my list is kind of long.
Well, keep that list long because it's so important.
It is
and
important.
It is, you know, I've many conversations I've been having with a lot of you know, leaders like yourself have been the worries about being virtual, and it is it's odd to say, you know, that in 2020 we, you know, many arts organizations kind of were left behind a little bit in that, in not having the resources and the funding to put towards that. I wouldn't blame it on the leaders and the organizations not thinking about those things. It's more about having the resources to do that takes a lot of time and a lot of staff time, which when there's small teams
Yes.
at these centers, art centers, museums, there's no time to spend on technology and on digital. It's about, you know, the people presence, and so it's nothing to blame on why it happened,
Right.
but it definitely was a shock to a
Yes.
lot of people as a moment of realization of how dependent we are today on the technology and the communication tools that we have. So I want to talk about the Southside Community Arts Center's
Okay.
history.
Okay.
It has quite
Yes.
the history that not many people know about. I don't like using the word hidden gems because it shouldn't, that's not what this is. It's a staple, it's a pillar to the Chicago Southside community, to the Bronzeville community, and to Chicago as a whole. And there are quite a lot of names of people that have been through those doors. Would you like to name a few of some of the
Sure. So,
legacies?
absolutely. I want to touch base on what you just said, though, a hidden gem. I would have to agree with you. We have a core community of supporters, of artists, of collectors, of individuals, patrons who have always supported us. But I also have a number of people who've told me, "Where are you located? I drive by there all the time and I didn't know you were there." And so part of my goal in the midst of COVID is to help people to get to know us better and to understand that a Charles White, a Carrie James Marshall, a Fahim Majid, a Theaster Gates, they're
Gwendolyn Brooks.
Gwendolyn
one of my
Brooks,
favorites.
yes, who wrote her first book of poetry there.
Yeah.
Gordon Parks had his dark room in the basement. Not to mention all of the current artists who have been through there, who exhibited there, who support us, who we support. There's no shortage of individuals. And with the litany of names, from one of our founders, Margaret Burroughs, to all of the names that have been
Nat King Cole.
We've got a
Everybody plays
piano, we've got a piano that he used to come.
Yeah.
But that really speaks to the fact that when we open the doors, I imagine, I wasn't here then, in 1940, it was the place. So if we think back to 1940, the times, there was not a place, there really weren't many spaces for the artists, particularly for the Black artists, to go, to come, to be, to feel comfortable, to learn, to experience, to experiment with their art, with their craft, to learn from other artists. And, you think back to 1940, and we've got a sitting First Lady in Eleanor Roosevelt coming because this was part of the original WPA. And that was unheard of in 1940. And it remains for the same reason, because it is a pivotal place for artists to come, to be supported, to feel like they have a home. It's interesting, and I'll go aside for a second. There's a group of students that have come in, and we were talking to them, and they said, it's so peaceful here. And we kind of attribute it to all those artists and all those people who've come before, who we'd like to believe, still look out for us, and in whatever realm they're in, to look and say, this center is important and it's a home.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it isn't, and it shouldn't be distinguished as a hidden gem. It is a pillar of the community, and at a time in the 1940s, when there were very few schools or arts organizations that even existed in the first place.
Right.
At the time, probably in Chicago, the most known would have been the School of the Art Institute. Right. And how inaccessible could that have been, with high prices of tuition and all of those things? It was a very privileged place to be at the time there.
Absolutely.
And Southside Community Arts Center created a space that was for everyone to be there and to be creative and to learn and to express their art form. That's something unique that Chicago has, I have to say, because that doesn't exist in a lot of other cities too. It's very unique to Chicago, and it's a beautiful story.
When I think about the number of people who say to me that I meet them and they start telling me their story, and they say, I took a class here when I was 7. I used to come here after school. Artists who say they came and they learned and they got their first introduction to the masters at the Southside Community Arts Center. It's a powerful story, and it is incumbent on us to continue to tell it, to expand that reach. We talk about virtual, but we're also increasing and enhancing our social media. One of the other areas that we have had an opportunity to grow. And we are now, we now have a Twitter account. We now have, we actually have had a Facebook and an Instagram, but we're, being much more focused and intentional about making sure that we're telling our story, that we're collaborating with other organizations, that we're making sure across the country that they're familiar with the Southside Community
And
Arts
that's a
Center too.
huge benefit now. We talked about this in one of our past episodes where we were talking to other cultural institutions, and the benefits of virtual right now are huge.
Yes.
It takes us internationally.
It
We can start
does.
to reach new audiences completely.
Absolutely.
And for smaller arts organizations that have been unfortunately overlooked for so long, this is a huge opportunity to expand recognition and to take advantage of that right now using social media and all of these platforms is beautiful. It's impressive. It's hard work though.
It is.
It's not easy
And
to get the
luckily-
recognition, right?
And for most organizations, it does require having someone dedicated to do that. And then again, you go back to staffing, capacity, the financials. Can you afford to do this? And so sometimes, small institutions are, they're doing a juggle.
Yeah, no, and honestly, I probably am biased when I say this, but I've worked with, over the years, I grew up in New York. I grew up going to some of the larger museums and art organizations in New York. I studied them in school. I studied the history of the Metropolitan Museum of Art
Nice.
and the Museum of Natural History. And I today stand so much more impressed, not to downplay any of those wonderful institutions, but so much more impressed today with the experimentation and the discovery and the learning that smaller museums and art centers are taking right now, because they're not going away.
No.
We see, some of these larger places are shutting their doors, not open to the public or limited, not doing that much online. However, I see 40 cultural heritage centers in Chicago that are constantly working with their communities, working online with the audiences now internationally. It's wonderful to see that opportunity now for these institutions to shine.
Yes.
And although it's hard because the resources are not all there yet, but it is beautiful to see that my hope is that we're going to see a huge rise in some of these small organizations to come to their prominence that they've
Yes.
deserved for so long.
I would love to see that as well. In fact, to your point, we opened a show this past Saturday. Jesse Howard, an artist that of incredible talent, he has a show, The Spirit of Community, and we opened the show this past Saturday. Well, being a small institution, we're trying to find what's the best way to do that. And so we figured out we would do an Eventbrite and do, every 30-minute increments and and manage the number of people. I mean, it was like no shortage. But I will tell you that we had a wonderful crowd. And crowd, I'm being, judicious. They didn't all come at once.
Yeah.
But everyone said something similar, and that is, we are just so happy that you're open. They said, I haven't done anything arts related since COVID hit, and this just feels so good to be open, have the doors open, and of course to see this incredible show, but just to be out.
Yeah.
And they appreciate it, and it was no small task for us to kind of do to make sure that everyone's safe, that our staff is safe, that the building remains ready for this type of entree to the public. And I was just really thrilled that so many people felt good about being able to come and support us.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's important right now is the arts brings community together. It
Yes.
helps us have, challenging conversations with each other. And now, more importantly than ever, the arts are needed. And we need to get that message out there
Yes,
to a
we
lot
do.
of people to support, because if a change in the funding and in even how individual giving works in small institutions. If that change doesn't come, we'll lose a lot of organizations, unfortunately, and we do not want to lose an organization that's been around for 80 years. It doesn't make sense to do that. So we have to find ways to
Yes.
get around it. But you, in particular, you talked a little bit about the arts, but are you an artist yourself? You're not an artist yourself, are you?
I am not an artist.
Yeah.
So, I took probably the odd road. I'm coming from a 20-year financial services background. So you think, so how did you get to the Southside Community Arts Center? Well, look, I want to go back a little bit further than that. I want to go back to my mom, and I want to pay homage to her. She supported the arts. She took me to every art fair, art show. She was always exposing me. And it's funny, at the time, I didn't realize just how impactful and important it would be in the long run. Go figure, your parent was right, right?
Of course, your parents are always right. They'll
She
tell
was
you.
right.
Yeah.
And so I have a great love for art. I am a collector. I have been for a number of years. I thought I wasn't, and then a couple of artists that I collect said, "Yeah, you've been doing this for a long time," and you're like, "Oh wow, I do have a few pieces."
Yeah.
But I have a great love and appreciation for artists and for the arts and the community. And I was on the board of the Southside Community Arts Center since 2018.
Okay.
And when our beloved former executive director, Masekwa, decided that she was, going to move towards her next, we were looking for an individual who could take the organization to the next step. And when I started really looking at what was important, we needed some foundational things around structure, focus, programming, around, consistency of, I want to say that again because I want to make sure that I say that one right. Is that okay to stop now?
Yeah,
okay.
You can just start now. Yeah.
Okay. When we were looking for the right next person, and I was looking and really excited about who that could be as well. But it became really clear to me that the skills that I had developed over the 20 plus years of relationship building, passion around the arts, financial acumen, growth, would be skills that would be in many ways transferable. The Southside Community Arts Center had become a passion point for me on the board, and it was so important that the momentum not be stopped. And so I threw my hat in, and I was doing it as an interim, on an interim basis. Quite a few of the board members said, "You should really consider doing this full time." And something about that place, I've got to just tell you, there's something about it, and I will tell anybody there, that gets in your skin, your spirit, and you just kind of start thinking, we could be doing this or we could be doing that. And so I'm very conscious about bringing in talented artists, curators, program specialists, to make sure that we not only carry on the legacy, but that we take it to another level. It's important to me. And so, yes, it was a change. I was talking about fundraising with an individual who's in that community, and I said, what's the secret? Is there a magic? And he said, you already know it. It's relationship building.
That's all it is.
It really is being able to tell the story of your organization, to understand, of course, you want to understand the finances, but you want to understand people.
Yeah.
You want to be able to connect the dots. As we prepare for 2021, we really wanted to make sure that we've got an amazing slate of artists and programming, and despite COVID, because we don't really know when this is really going to end or change or shift. So as we begin to launch for 2021, we're looking at collaborations. The first one will be Hyde Park Art Center with Fahim Majid. We are looking at doing some incredibly new and innovative things that will continue the legacy of the center. And so for that, I'm super excited.
Yeah.
I can't tell you.
Yeah, you're still making plans even though there's a lot of unknowns. And honestly, that is the story of resilience right there for arts organizations, because nobody's stopping plans, right?
No.
We don't know what 2021 is going to look like at all, especially around the funding,
Yes.
which is the hardest part.
Yes.
As you can imagine, I'm racking my brains with a budget right now on what to do, and it's not going to be easy, but it is really, you mentioned, Hyde Park Art Center. It really is about the connections with the community and other institutions that keep us going. And that really is truly what the Chicago Cultural Alliance is about, too. It's a network of 40 cultural heritage centers in different neighborhoods of Chicago that often get together to try to support one another, because we don't have big teams. We don't have, is it just you now there right now at the Art Center?
Well, it's not just
Yeah,
me,
okay.
but we still have a development director, and
Okay,
we have someone helping with the facilities,
Yeah.
and we've hired an individual who's helping with some virtual curations and a lot of other things. I will say everybody wears multiple hats.
Yeah, as always.
And you said something I really want to just piggyback on, and I want to make sure that in the next couple of years, as we plan, that we do work with the community, with the Arts Alliance, because there are so many incredible organizations that we can help support each other.
Yeah, it's you're new to the organization, so you're also new to the alliance.
Yes,
and
I
I will
am.
have to say it is a beautiful network of people,
Yes.
and I'm excited for you to be part of that now. That support one another through everything. Earlier, we had another conversation with Sulan Moy, who's the president of the Chinese American Museum, and told a beautiful story about a fire at the museum that the members came together to support the museum through that fire. That's what this community is about. It's supporting each other through challenging times like now. And we've hosted a lot of town halls virtually with our member organizations, and to hear the stories of how these institutions are continuing to work with their communities now, and always have. Nothing has changed, right? They've always been doing this work. But to bring in the communities now and to support those communities now has never been more important, because
Absolutely.
even some organizations are simply doing food distribution in their neighborhoods, and how important that is right now. And to support through the arts is a whole nother way of bringing community together and ensuring that we're all going to get through this. And it's centers like the Southside Community Arts Center that are truly going to help us all get through this at the end of the day.
I can't speak to the power of community. And when I think about the excitement I feel about being a part of this organization, it's about empowerment. I mean, we're talking about one city, but if you're from Chicago, it's a lot of neighborhoods, a lot of communities, it's a lot of diversity. I'm born and raised in Chicago, and we talk about moving at some point, but I can't think of a better city. I'm a little biased. I know I'm a little biased.
Yeah.
But Chicago has everything.
Yeah.
And it has everything because of the people, because of the communities, because of the diversity. We've got the lake and, the things that are fun in the summer and when it's warm. And I think something about that cold just makes people come out like crazy once it warms up. But it is a strong community. We will make it through this. And I couldn't think of a better time in history on multiple levels why a strong alliance and a community focus is important. When I think about the Southside Community Arts Center, I think about the artists. These are individuals who, in many cases, this is how they support their families. And they need us now more than ever because they need a venue, they need a way to share their craft, their love, their passions,
their
their stories
about their communities.
with the broader public.
Yeah.
And we want to play a role in helping them to do that. So
That's beautiful. Yeah. And you talked a lot about, the artists that you work with. And one of the things I'm really curious about, why is it that art in particular helps us to bring community together, or helps us have conversations that are unexpected? What is it about a painting or a photograph that helps us have that? Do you know?
so I can tell you no. I
Okay.
don't know. I can give my thoughts.
Yes.
And I'm sure everybody would have a different thought. But for me, art can evoke emotions. It can evoke passion. It can evoke memories, thoughts, history, take you back to a time and a place, share with you somebody who's important. You might see a flower and you think about your grandmother's garden and you say, wow, that's gorgeous. You may see something that just resonates with you, your soul, your spirit, and art does that. It's, no two pieces are exactly alike. You think about the diversity in art. There's so many mediums. There's so many different ways of artistic expression. And so to me, art just makes life a little more enjoyable.
That's beautiful. I love that. That is exactly it. It does make it a little more beautiful for us. And what more do we need now than a little more beauty in our lives
We
through
absolutely
art?
do.
I don't want to miss on the fact that I do have to congratulate the Southside Community Arts Center for recently, and not so recently, in the last few years, becoming a national treasure, honored by the National Trust of Historic Preservation. What an honor
Absolutely.
to have a Southside community institution that has been around for 80 years to finally get this historic recognition. What does that mean to the community and to the center?
It's huge. And I really, it happened in 2019. Really, before my tenure, it was, being announced. And we really appreciate the work on behalf of the Southside Community Arts Center that the National Trust did to help us get this designation. We are the last remaining art center of the WPA, and I have to say this right, that's still operating in its original location.
Right.
Since 1940.
Yeah.
So that's powerful.
80 years. Yeah.
80 years. There is something, when you come, hopefully if you haven't, I wish I know you have, but when our guests come to see us again, we have these wood panels. And what's so powerful about these panels is they have these little holes. And upon first glance, you think, okay, maybe they need a
little retouching.
They need a little retouching here. But the reality is, the power of those holes is that each hole represents a place where a piece of art has hung over the last 80 years. So if you ran your hand down just the plank and you think about whose art was hanging here, was it
everyone and
everyone's? Everyone.
Yeah.
Whose sculpture was in the room? Who was playing in the room? Who was writing poetry in the room? Who was creating art? And to be recognized is just another component of making sure that our story, to me, is told, and to honor all of those individuals that managed to keep the center going over these last 80 years. And some years required a lot more love and support than others. And now we move into a different era where we're needing another level of support, virtually, support to help us continue to offer the programs.
And to grow.
Grow.
Because you are working and hoping to physically expand the spaces
Absolutely.
and renovations to the building, because it is 130 years old.
There might be a few things. I say that with a smile. There are a number of things that we are looking forward to doing. We've got some grants that we're looking forward to finalizing and being able to realize over the next couple of years that will help us to really not change the center, but to enhance the center, to make it more accessible, to do the types of things that will allow even more individuals to come through the doors, and also to expand.
To build deeper roots in the community. The roots are so deep there, but this is only going to establish this institution more for the Southside community and for Chicago as a whole.
Absolutely.
And we're so excited to see that growth as it comes. And with your leadership, congratulations. I know it's a challenging time.
And congratulations
Thank
to
you as well. It is a challenging time, but we'll get through it, right? We'll figure it out together.
If not, we'll call each other and say
cheers with
Cheers.
A couple of glasses of wine. We'll get through it. Yeah.
Cheers.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Monique,
you.
for joining us.
I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you coming here to the museum, to the Chicago History Museum, to share your story about the Southside Community Arts Center and your own work. And I look forward to working with you more.
I absolutely look forward to working with you as well. And may I also add that if someone hasn't had a chance to follow us on social media, that we encourage them to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And ultimately, you'll be around to see our new website.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We'll make sure to share those links too, so that people can start following it.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, take care.